That was one of the things I was thinking about as I was watching your new show. One of which has one of the episodes of which is like called, I think, New Americans. And it's a
Becoming American. I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
becoming
know the
American.
one.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And it's
Yeah.
about immigration stories. Is
Yeah.
you have a conversation with a Somali American writer whose name is Abdi Norifdin, um,
Abdi. Yeah.
and he got a visa through the visa lottery,
Yeah.
which is tens of thousands of visas that are given out by country, often in sort of reverse in the sort of opposite proportion to how badly the residents of that country need to be in a better place.
Right.
Um, there's and so places like Somalia, where he came from, often have very, very
Mm.
few visas through this lottery program, and many
Right.
applicants. Um,
I don't know anything about that lottery program other than Abdi's experience. I know that that's how he came in. I don't know how they're handed
yeah,
out or how they're given out.
it's really I mean, like I'm not an expert in the field, but I worked in an immigration law firm, not as an attorney, for a little bit. And
Right.
we had lots of clients who had been on the wait list, had been applying to that lottery every year, had been in that lottery every year for 10, 20, 25 years. Like
Yeah.
everyone in their family, just everyone applying every year.
Yeah.
Um, were you thinking when you were talking to new Americans, people who were becoming citizens, about how difficult it is to be in the United States, uh, quote unquote, legally?
It's not something that I mean, the immigration stories that we focused on were people who had been through the immigration process. So we weren't really looking at anyone who had we weren't looking at the story of how it's done. It was more about the emotional reaction of when it's done. So what my focus was on that show was more about what you and I were talking about. I mean, the idea of America doesn't match up to the America that you come to. So the actual thought process of it was more about the emotionality of someone who's gone through the process rather than someone who's trying to go through the process. Um, the fact that I did that was because that's kind of what I wanted to look at. That felt more personal. I don't. My experience was um, fairly. I think it was fairly kind of run of the mill. I mean, I got a job. The people that hired me helped me get a visa. I worked through the visa. I eventually got a green card. The green card eventually turned into, permanent residency, but just turned into citizenship. So it was a long process, though. I didn't become a citizen in 2008. I've lived here since 1994. So I mean, it wasn't some. It wasn't the focus of what we were doing. It was more about how it felt, really, to the individuals as opposed to the. And so when Abdi talked about I mean, Abdi's story is remarkable. It's crazy how he. But what what I thought was interesting, and Salman Rushdie brought this up, and I thought he was a very good example of it. That Salman had an idea of America before he ever came here. So did Abdi. So did I. So that everybody has this idea about America, including people who have never been here. I mean, you can get plenty of documentaries or talking heads on TV around the world that will tell you about America that have never been here. In fact, the kind of smaller version of that is Los Angeles. People will tell you what Los Angeles is like having been there for a weekend, and they go, it's not what it's like." I love when people say things like the Hollywood cocktail circuit. I'm like, I lived in LA for 20 years. There's no Hollywood cocktail circuit. People don't like each other. It's a factory town. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I live in Lincoln Heights. I have never been
Yeah.
surfing. I don't.
Yeah.
I've lived in Los
It's
Angeles 20 years. I've been to the beach 8
yeah.
times.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's like people say, you live in New York. I bet you hang out with that Empire State Building crowd. Well, actually, no, I don't. I didn't know there was one.
New York is all observation decks, from what I
Yeah,
hear.
they're all up in that deck with those things you put a quarter in, looking at you with their peepee eyes.
Yeah, everybody's up there. They got the quarter binoculars, and they're going, "Hey,
Yeah,
I'm looking
yeah.
here."
I'm looking here to get a half-chewed cigar. Hey,
Yeah.
what's going on over here? Whoop.
When you talked to Abdi Noriftin, had the president already sort of been publicly obsessed with Somali Americans?
No, it was before all of that, I think. It wasn't, we weren't, I mean, and I purposely stayed away from all of that, Michigan. So what I wanted to do with the show was not focus on that. It was very important to me to make a show which was, look, it that was optimistic, I guess, in its field. That was a kind of upbeat 4/4 John Bon Jovi song, as opposed to, it's kind of like a dun, 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 like something that was uh, it wasn't jingoistic, but it was accessible, and we kind of stayed in that. And also to make it personal, I wasn't talking about immigration policy. I was talking about Abdi. I was talking about him. I wasn't talking about policy.
Why did you want to make a show like that?
Because I felt like it felt like a creatively an interesting thing to do. It was the 250th anniversary of the country, so it was appropriate. I feel like, picking holes in America, which is totally fine. I mean, it's a it's a kind of oversubscribed market, if you like. I wanted to make something which so this is still great. This is still great here. You don't have to lie about, how great it is. Great, it's great here, and there's so many good things and interesting things and unusual things about the United States. And because I wanted to do a show which was kind of personal, in a way, my personal kind of experience with it.